Hi friends, in this video we are going to explore Bootstrap. Okay, to step into Bootstrap, let me open the slide. Before stepping into this video, you should have idea about few things. Those are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you have practiced some part HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, then Bootstrap is the right place to start exploring web development, especially front-end development. And this series will be based on two versions of Bootstrap. One is 4.x and another one is 5.x. You can replace x with some numbers. Okay, it can be 1, 2, 3, 4, and based on that. And this video will be based on these two versions. Why two versions? Because this video was taken on March 2021. At that time, the latest version was version 4, and version 5 got released in beta, which means it is not officially released, but the in next few months we can get the latest version of 5 as the latest version. But the projects that are being developed now and last 2 years have been based on version 4.x. So you should know, if you are practicing front-end development in the year of 2021 or 2022, then you should have good knowledge on Bootstrap 4 as well as Bootstrap 5. Okay, and it will be it won't be like a major difference. It will be like the version 5 will be an expanded version of version 4, and that you will learn when we are learning each component one by one. So we will start with introduction. Usually people will start learning with what is Bootstrap, but instead I would say you should start with why Bootstrap, why you should learn this framework. Bootstrap, you have to consider using Bootstrap when you are supposed to develop a web page in a short period of time, which means when you are supposed to develop a web page without spending more time on it, as well as when you want your web page should be responsive. Okay, when you want your web page should be responsive, and when you don't have much time to start, when you don't have much time to uh, develop the entire page from scratch, then you can use Bootstrap. Okay, why it won't take more time? Because the Bootstrap will have its own components and some set of um, features which you can use it. It is a kind of ready-made shirt. Instead of um, buying some shirt and stitching yourself, you are simply buying the ready-made shirt. We can say in that way, or in another way we can say like it is a kind of building blocks that is already available. You are just going to uh, use the necessary building blocks based on your requirement and just tie one another. That is how we will use Bootstrap. Okay, and if you couldn't visualize what I am saying, then no problem. When you see the first example, you will understand and you will get some idea of why we have to use Bootstrap. And version history: Bootstrap started with version 1.0, and then it came to 2.0, and both are not at all used right now. Then they launched version 3, that also is not in use. Bootstrap 4, from Bootstrap 4 they followed uh, fluid concept in instead of, you can say like, from Bootstrap 4 they used display flux concept that totally changed the way we develop layouts. Okay, so now we use either version 4 or version 5 if it was developed, if the project was developed 3 or 4 months back, then it should be version 4. And if it is developed now, just now, then it will be version 5. So it is good to learn both version 4 and 5. And I said earlier, there won't be much difference between 4 and 5, but there was a huge difference between 2 and 3. But thankfully both are not in use now, so you can very well skip those versions and start focusing on version 4 and 5. Okay, what are all the tech stacks involved in Bootstrap framework? There are three major tech stacks involved in Bootstrap. Those are HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So you should have a good knowledge on these three tech stacks. There are people who directly start using Bootstrap without learning these three things properly. That is not recommended way, because your mind will start thinking in Bootstrap way. You will not have a good idea of what is happening behind the screen. So it is always recommended to learn the programming language first and then practice the framework. So the major tech stacks, what are that? HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So you should be able to write your own HTML, your own CSS and your own JavaScript without using the ready-made script. Okay. And then beyond these three tech stack, Bootstrap also has some dependencies. The first dependency is jQuery. So if you want your project to be developed in Bootstrap, then you have to use jQuery. jQuery is also another open source library, JavaScript library, that very well you can use it. But if there is some restriction from your client, like you should not use jQuery because there are some problems in your platform, like that, if the client says, then you cannot use Bootstrap as well. So these are all the dependencies that you have to keep an eye on. And there are few more dependencies like Popper.js, but that won't play a major role. For few components only, Popper.js will be needed. So we can skip that for now. And one more thing is, beyond dependency, one more tool that Bootstrap gives us is SAS. SAS is another CSS preprocessor which you might have come across. So if you are going to use SAS for your project, then Bootstrap supports that as well. But for now, if you are a beginner, then the possibilities of knowing SAS will be very less, so you can skip that part. It is like an add-on. If you want to develop a project using SAS, then Bootstrap has its own way to do that. But if you are having no plan to use SAS, then you can simply omit that. Okay, tech stack is over. And what are all the collections that Bootstrap gives? There are three major collections. We can categorize Bootstrap into three major things. First one is layout, second one is uh, content, and third one is component. I can explain this by visiting their reference website. The website to access Bootstrap is getbootstrap.com, or you can simply Google it. And once you land into their website, you will have access to their latest version. Here, their latest version is 5.0 when this video was recorded, but that is beta. Beta means they cannot give 100% guarantee that this version will be bug free. So people will move on to the latest release, which is not beta. So the previous non-beta release version is 4.x. So you can go to that. Let me open that in new tab, as well as you can explore Bootstrap 5 as well. This is Bootstrap 4.6, the latest production friendly version, and this is latest beta version. So soon this beta version will be considered as um, production friendly version, which means they will fix all the bugs present in Bootstrap 5. Now they would have been testing this version. Okay? And if it is confusing for you to compare these two, no problem. You can directly focus on version 4.6 and come back to 5 after some time. After you get some um, good grip on Bootstrap 4.6, then you can come back to 5. But if you feel it is okay for me to compare these two and learn, then you can do that. Okay, so the major split will be based on few things. One is introduction that you can simply skip for now, and the major three collections of Bootstrap is layout, content, and component. These three things, how strong you are on these three things will define how good you are in Bootstrap. Come back to version 5. Here also you will see these three things: layout, content, and component. In 5 they have brought form as a different one, but in Bootstrap 4.6 that forms will be inside component. Okay. Likewise, there will be small difference, but that won't make any big change in learning. So you can focus on 4.6 to learn it, and there will be few changes or few enhancement available in 5.0, and you will start learning, exploring each topics one by one in this video series. Installation. We will start with how to install Bootstrap in your machine. Usually how you will install a software in your project, you will get the exe file from somewhere and install it in your laptop. If it is an app, then you will go to Play Store or App Store based on your OS and you will simply install it. But Bootstrap is not a software, it is a framework. So they will give us their source file. From that we can start building our project. Okay, there are three ways to install Bootstrap. Installing Bootstrap means simple. When you start a project, that project folder will be empty, right? When you start a project, the project folder will be empty. When you use Bootstrap for your project folder will have the base files given by Bootstrap. From that you will start writing it. If you can't imagine what I'm saying, no problem, we will practice it. At that time you will understand. Okay, there are three different ways to start using Bootstrap in your project. There are three different ways to start using Bootstrap in your project. The first one is source file. They will directly give you the source file, or we can say like you can directly download the source file of Bootstrap and start using it. The second one is CDN, content delivery network. So CDN means you won't download all files, but the files will be available in internet. You will simply access it. If you have already used Google Fonts, then the methodology is same. You will call that Google Fonts file link in your header. Likewise, you will call the Bootstrap's CSS file and the Bootstrap's JS file in your HTML file and start using it. Package manager, if you have used or if you want to use some package managers like NPM, or there are so many package managers available. If you want to use it, then you can try that. But this video is not about package managers, so we won't learn or explore that. If you have idea about package manager, then you can take it forward, but we will start with CDN because it is the easiest way to use Bootstrap. To download that, make sure you are on the right version. We are on 4.6. How I am saying, in the URL itself it says 4.6. Then to getting started, then there will be a link called download. Go there, and there they would have mentioned all possible ways to download the Bootstrap version. The first one is source file. You can take it, or you can also download the compiled CSS. There is no big difference between these two. Compiled CSS and JS means they would have minified the version, minified their file, and will give you. Source file means they will give you without minifying it. So the file size of source file will be bit higher, because it would not have been minified. Okay, so if you are going to use Bootstrap to develop your web page, then compiled CSS and JS is enough. But if you want to make some changes in Bootstrap itself, okay, if you want to make some changes in Bootstrap itself, then you will need source file. But if your goal is like you won't make any changes on Bootstrap, I will use Bootstrap to develop a new project means, then you can use compiled CSS or JS. But in our case, we are not going to deal with these things. Instead, we'll go with CDN model. They use JS Deliver. It's one of the CDN provider, so they use it. You don't need to think more about this word. Instead, you can simply copy this line in your project and start using it. So let me create a new folder. Let me create a new file. HTML is the file name. Now I need to simply copy these words and use it in my project. So we need the basic HTML. We know how to do that, and add these two lines. There are two ways to add it. Let's go with the first model. And when you copy these two lines, you will see some attributes which you haven't used. Rel and href, these two attributes you should have used if you have practiced JavaScript. But there is new attributes like integrity and cross origin. For now, if you are running your code in local, then you can simply delete these two attributes. Save it and put your script in bottom of your page. And this CSS will have all necessary styles which Bootstrap gives. Okay, before stepping into this video, you might have used reset CSS. What is the use of reset CSS? It will simply reset the entire styles given by browser. The browser or the user agent will write its own style, and our reset CSS will simply remove it, and it will allow us to write our own styles from scratch. But Bootstrap will make a small change in reset CSS. Bootstrap will apply a decent style for every single HTML tag. Like Bootstrap will apply some decent style for every single HTML tag, and it will have some styles that is majorly used in web pages. Okay. These are all the two things that Bootstrap CSS does for us. Let me open that file. This is a minified file. So if you remove that min.css, then you can see the source file. This is the source file of Bootstrap. This will have it will be almost like reset CSS. You can compare this file with your reset CSS. In reset CSS, every value will be 0, but in Bootstrap it will apply some font size and some margin values so that the page will look neat even though you don't write any styles. Okay, there are so many lines written by the Bootstrap developers. If you want to know how many lines they have written, simply copy and paste in a new file. See, there are 10,300 lines that they have already written. So you can use these classes in your project so that you don't need to spend more time on writing styles. That's it. This is the use of Bootstrap. Now you can compare my previous example. Bootstrap will have some blocks, building blocks. You can simply combine based on your need, and you can treat this css file as the building blocks. This css will have so many building blocks, and you will take necessary styles by calling it in your html file, by calling the necessary class names in your html file. Just like css, they will write so many lines in JS as well. Okay, you can copy this JS file like how I did CSS. You can do the same for JS and see how many lines they have written. So we have added CSS and JS. There is one more way to add the JS file. As I said earlier, Bootstrap requires jQuery to work. Here they would have added jQuery along with their Bootstrap. That is what called as Bootstrap bundle. Bootstrap bundle means that JS file will have the necessary libraries as well. But if you don't want to add the third-party plugins, jQuery is a third-party library. If you don't want to add that third-party library in a single file, if you don't want to add the third-party library in a single file, then you can delete this code and add these three lines separately. If you want to copy all the three lines, there will be a button, just click it, code will be copied. I said earlier, you can simply delete integrity and cross origin for now. Now you have to make one important change. In jQuery, they would have used slim version. You can simply delete that word. Now you don't need to think why we are deleting that word. I will explain when it is needed in upcoming series. Okay, let's open our HTML page. Nothing is there because I didn't write anything. Hello world, and let's inspect and see source, sorry, network, and refresh the page so that we can make sure all files are being loaded properly. Bootstrap file is loaded. we have got 200 status, so all files got 200, so all files are loaded properly. Now your HTML page is ready to use Bootstrap features. Now your HTML page is ready to use Bootstrap features. This is the basic template that you have to use when you use CDN model. Okay, and it is good enough to use CDN to practice Bootstrap. And the next one you need to learn in Bootstrap is breakpoints. What are all the breakpoints that Bootstrap follows for responsive web design? Bootstrap 4 follows 5 breakpoints. First one is 576 pixel up to 576 pixel. Up to 576 pixel, if you want to apply some styles, then they call that screen as extra small. Likewise, after 576, they call it a small device, and from 768, they call it as medium device, then large and extra large as shown in the screen. But in version 5 they have introduced a new breakpoint, that is if you want to target some screen which is more than 1400 pixel, then you can use this set of styles, and there is a code for each breakpoint. For small it is SM, for medium it is MD, for large LG, extra large means XL, extra large means double XL, and there is no code for small screen, extra small screen, which means if you write some base styles without mentioning the code, then you are writing for extra small. Okay, if you don't mention any of the symbols, which means you are writing for extra small. That's it. This is what called as mobile first approach. We have already learned what is mobile first approach in your previous sessions. If you had missed that video, mobile first approach means writing styles for mobile view first and then targeting some bigger screens. Okay, writing styles for mobile screen first and then writing necessary styles in media query for the bigger screens one by one. Now, after learning this breakpoint, you should keep these values in mind. You should not need a documentation. You should not need to see documentation to remember these words and these codes. Okay, these values should be in your mind along with the reference name, breakpoint name. Now, let us use container class. If you have already built some projects using your own HTML CSS, then you should have used container. And in Bootstrap, how they have written the container, let us see that. This is what you would have seen in the screen now. In Bootstrap 4.6, there is only extra large. If you come to 5 and see layout, you can see one more, that is extra large. Okay, that is the only difference in breakpoints between Bootstrap 4 and 5. Okay. If you want to achieve some container width in Bootstrap, you just need to use this class name. You don't need to write any styles for this. You just need to call this class name, then it will be automatically applied. Let me create a new view and put my code inside container, save it, go to browser, refresh your page. So it has come inside container. You can resize the screen to see how the container styles are applied. Let me select this. You can see what is the style for each breakpoint. by default in small extra small screen the width is 100 percentage, and if I keep expanding it, after 576 the value for container is 540 pixel, and if I go beyond 768 the value is 720 pixel, then 960. If you go beyond 1200 then the value will be 1140. Okay. I didn't write even a single line in CSS. What I did was I have just used the Bootstrap's CDN file that have injected me the necessary styles. Okay, this is what the power of Bootstrap. You maximum you don't need to write any styles to get the basic layout for your web page. After that, to improve the basic layout, you will write the necessary styles by creating a new CSS file for you. Create a new folder and style file, and you have to link this styles file after Bootstrap. So if you want to write some styles which is not available in Bootstrap, keep this in mind. If you want to write something which is not available in Bootstrap, then you will write it in styles.css. Okay, there are two reasons to use styles.css. One is there are some styles, there is a need for some styles which is not available in Bootstrap. I will write it. And another scenario is Bootstrap has applied some styles, but I don't want that. I want to overwrite it. In that case also, you will use styles.css. Okay, two scenarios. One is I want to write some styles which is not available in Bootstrap for some elements, and the next case is Bootstrap has applied some styles, but I want to overwrite it. At the time also, you will write it. For example, I don't want Bootstrap's container value. I want to change it. In mobile view, in extra small screen, they have applied 100 percentage, but I want only 80 percentage. Means you will write it and save it, and see your style would have been applied instead of Bootstrap's style, because we have called Bootstrap CSS first followed by our CSS. So our CSS file will overwrite this one. So the final power will be with us. We will decide what style has to be applied to our HTML tag. Okay, there is one more container type, that is container fluid. When you want to develop some full width web pages from left edge to right edge, if you want to apply some styles, then you will give container fluid. Now container fluid will occupy the entire width by supplying some pixel, 15 pixel padding in left and right side. These are all the two containers. Then we will learn grid system in the next session. For now, you can explore what are the things that we learned, and if you have already developed some web pages by writing your own code, then don't disturb it. Create a new project and use Bootstrap library to build Bootstrap framework and to build the same web page. Okay, we will continue the next section. We will continue the grid system in the next session. Thank you.